Hello Techies. In this session, we will test our knowledge on data types in Power Automate for Cloud. Alright, what is the question asked in PL500 exam? If you see on my screen, you develop automation solutions for a company. You need to configure variables for the cloud flow solution. Which type of variables should you use for each type of data? Before answering this question, we will learn about data types in Power Automate for Cloud. The reason is that we see over here we have to use the variables, type of variables we should use for each type of data. Before answering this question, let me switch to Power Automate for Cloud. I have created a cloud flow with the name of PL500 and there I have initialized a variable as the action. I have given the parameters as name as data types. And there you can see the types over here. There you can say I'm having Boolean, integer, float, string, object, and array. So these are all the data types which we are having in Power Automate for Cloud. So what is this data types? Data type is a way of classifying and organizing different kinds of data in computer programming. They are like containers where each data type has a specific shape and size, and it can hold specific types of things. In Power Automate for Cloud, the data types are generally like those found in programming languages and productivity software. Alright, now we'll see what are the data types available in Power Automate for Cloud. Just as we have seen over here, in Power Automate for Cloud, we are having integer, float, Boolean, string, array, and object data types. Let me explain one by one about these data types in detail. First one, we'll go for integer. Integer is a data type having the whole number without a decimal point. For an example, if you want to store the person's age like 30, or the quantity sold like 1000, or the difference between two dates like -35 and so on, in that case, we are going to use integer data type. Now, the second one is the float data type. A float data type is used for the numbers with decimals. For an example, if you are going to store a person's weight, like if he is having 65.5 kgs of weight, in that case, you are going to store in float. Or the product price. Now, if you see, if the product price is 19.99 rupees, in that case, you are going to store in float data type. All right. Now, we'll go for the third one, that is Boolean. Boolean data type represents true or false values only. It is a binary type we are going to use for conditional actions. For an example, a Boolean data type could indicate whether an email contains attachments or not with true or false. True means yes, or false means no. If you are going to represent Boolean data type, it represents inside the expressions. It is not needed to include in single quotes because I'm going to give yes or no or true or false. In that case, I don't want to give it in single quotes for Boolean. But the same thing we have to give it in string format if it is there. What is string data type? A string is a data type which is a sequence of characters typically used for text data. For an example, if I want to represent the name or if I have to give the name in string format, in that case, I'm going to give in single quotes and then I will give Will Smith as given. Or if I want to give any value in string, in that case, I will give 1, 2, 3, 4 in single quotes and I will represent the value between the quotes. Or if I have to give Power Automate, in that case, I will represent the string in between the quotes. So what will happen when we are using strings inside the expression, we'll make sure that the values are having the quotes over there. All right. Now, the next data type is array. Array is a data type that can hold multiple values in a single variable. It's a kind of list over there. For an example, I'm having array data type could store list of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a list of values, right? And then I'm going to give in the square brackets. That is one kind of example. Now, the second kind of example, if I want to store the list of names, in that case, what I will do, I will give in the square brackets, give John, Rafael, or even the list of random values and different data types. We can give it as Power Automate, and the values we can give it inside the array. Now, we are going for the last data type, that is object data type. An object data type that can hold multiple values of different types and is used to store structured data. For an example, if you see on my screen, I'm having the information about the person, such as name is Alice, age is 25, and the city is New York. In that case, I'm going to use object over here. All right. Now, I hope you understand what are the different types of data types available in Power Automate for Cloud. Now, let me switch to PL500 question once again. Now, if you see the requirement over here, I want to store a list of names in JSON format. There, what is the main requirement? I want to store the list of names. So, and you will find the solution over here. Inside my solution, I'm having object, float, integer, and array. So, integer is used to store the numbers so that it is not suitable, and float is the decimal values, that is also not suitable. Now, list of names, that we are having two data types. One is object, another one is array. Object will hold multiple values with different data types. So now I want to store only the list of names of the same type. List of name means it's a string format. So list of, I'm going to use array, which is the same data type. String is the same data type, right? So for the list of names, I'm going to use the data type as array. Okay. Now the second requirement, I'm going to store the URL for a website. URL means whenever you want to store the URL, in that case, you are going to use the data type as string because it is containing the characters, letters, and many more, right? So that we are going to use the URL in string format. So what is string? String is a data type which is having the sequence of characters, correct? And it is in text data format. Typically, it's a text data format. In that case, I'm going to use string over here. I'm not going to use the object, float, integer, or array. I'm going to use the string over here. Why can't we say in array or object? Array and object is having holding multiple values. But here I'm going to store the URL so that I'm going to use string as the data type. Now coming to the third requirement, I want to store a date using the following pattern, that is YYYY But it's a date format. If you observe, this is the date format. But in our Power Automate for Cloud, we don't have the data type as date, right? In Power Automate for desktop, we are having it, but Power Automate for Cloud, we don't have. So in this case, I'm having the pattern of the string format. I'm going to use YYYY and then and DD. In this case, I'm going to use string, where I'm going to give the values in quotes. All right, so that I'm going to use the string as the data type over here for this requirement. Now coming to the final requirement, I want to store a price for the product. So for an example, if I'm having the price of a product as 20 rupees or $20.05, I'm going to use float data type, correct? I'm not going to use integer because it won't accept the decimal values. So I'm going to use to store a price for the product. In that case, I'm going to use float data type. All right, let me reveal the answers for this PL500 question. There you can see for the first requirement for the list of names in JSON format, I'm going to use array data type. For the second requirement, store the URL for a website, I'm going to use string data type. And to store a date using the following pattern, in that case, I'm going to use string format. And to store a price for a product, I'm going to use float data type. All right. I hope you understand the different data types in Power Automate for Cloud, and also we fulfill the requirement as part of this tutorial.